Look, I get it. Squatting sucks. I'm not strong in the squat. It's difficult. My form isn't right. It doesn't feel good. Well, that is why I'm here today. Here are my top 5 squat accessories for squat strength in powerlifting. Stay to the end and let me know which one is your favorite. Okay, let's jump straight into the first accessory. At number 1, we have the pause squat. Why is the pause squat so good? So the pause squat actually requires a lot less load. So the pause squat requires you to pause at the very bottom of the lift. And what this does is it means that you are basically training the most difficult part of the lift. Meaning that when you squat, you're actually lifting less weight. That's a good thing because that is the strength of your bottom position without any stretch reflex, without any of that bullshit, okay? It is your true strength in the bottom of the squat, right? And so because it's less load, it's easy to recover from. So as a squat accessory, if your recovery sucks because you stayed up, let's say this is your lifestyle, right? You stay up 5 hours of sleep, no protein, because protein is for the weak, right? Who eats protein? Ill. Just train and recover, bro. If you eat protein, ridiculous, right? So your recovery is terrible. You might find, or just in general, right, being realistic about recovery, you might just not be someone who can't tolerate really high loads on squat. So a pause squat can be really useful in that scenario because it lets you train the most difficult part while not lifting very much weight. And because it's the most difficult part of the lift, it teaches you how to brace. It teaches you how to hold position. These are very important skills as you progress as a lifter. Because if you do not know how to hold your position and brace, you'll show up comp time, you'll load up your max squat, and you'll fold like a folding chair. No, fold like a folding chair. You'll fold like a picnic chair, right? Because you just don't have the strength and the skill to hold that position, right? I've seen it at comps. In fact, I've witnessed it with my eyeballs. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of cringe. You look at it and you go, ugh, And so a lot of that, to some extent, can be prevented by just learning how to hold that position. If you are somebody whose chest, as they squat, this is the way down, they go, that's the depth, and they come up and their ass shoots up and they're like, sound effects are necessary, right? So your ass shoots up before your chest. That is a problem, by the way. You want your ass and your chest to rise at the same rate so that your chest stays the right angle. If you're somebody who experiences that, a lot of times it's a form thing. And so pause squats teach you to basically hold your chest up because it's so much more difficult out of the hole. So you really got to drive. You're really emphasizing that chest up. So it's a very useful accessory for training that. And to summarize, in other words, you just have to focus more on form, which has huge carryover in the squat, which makes it one of my favorite squat accessories. It's also great in the off season. It's also great when you're approaching competitions. And so for that reason, I like to program it in the 3 to 6 rep range. The thing with pause squats is that if you program it too light, you get some problems, right? You're not actually challenging the form because the weight's too light. Of course you can pause and push up. It's not heavy enough to fold you like a chair. And so it's like you need to be making sure that you're lifting heavy enough. And generally, if you're pushing hard in the 3 to 6s, you are. Number 2. This is actually my favorite, right? I know I'm not saving my favorite for the end, but I want to keep you guys intrigued. Why is he saying his favorite so early? Are all the other ones shit? No, they're not. They are not shit. But this one just happens to be my favorite. I thought of it second. So it is the safety bar squat. This is basically the front squat for powerlifting. Because powerlifters have no mobility and we eat gummy bears between sets, we have to do a safety bar squat instead of a front squat. Even then, I actually think the safety bar squat, assuming we had the mobility, I know, right? Assuming we had the mobility, would still have better transfer if it was a safety bar squat as opposed to a front squat. The safety bar squat makes almost every aspect of squatting harder. Every aspect. It's much more taxing on the quads and the back. So back to when your chest is kind of not rising quick enough in the squat, if it's not a technique issue, it's often a strength issue. And that comes from either two things, either weak quads or a weak back. And the safety bar, it trains both of them simultaneously. You have to hold a tight back position and you have to have strong quads to safety bar squat a lot of weight. And so that's why it is so powerful if that is a limiting factor for you. And just like the pause squat, you have to be very mindful of how you brace. And because you have to brace and be very mindful of that, it transfers. And so bracing is like a critical aspect of squatting. And so if you can't brace, I would really suggest figuring it out. The difference between bracing and not is like 40 kilos, 50 kilos on your squat. That's not even a joke. Your torso or your body is literally like a tin can, okay? And if the tin can has a dent in it, the tin can, if you squeeze it, folds like very quickly. But if you keep the tin can solid and circle all around, you could apply heaps and heaps of pressure on the top of it, it's still not going to break. And so bracing is like ensuring the can stays completely circle. So this is also a great off-season builder. Because it's more general strength, it's going to have a very long-term carryover. And so I think this is probably best used in the off-season or more of your general strength blocks as it is. And you can modify your form so that you can either focus on building muscle, so you can take it through a longer range of motion, you can be much more quad dominant, or you can be more strength focused, where you really load your hips and you make all those little adjustments. And so for that reason, I think the safety bar squat is great for the 3 to 10 rep range. Number 3, this only applies to low bar squatters. I'm sorry, my high bar enthusiasts, learn how to squat, but this one doesn't apply to you because the accessory is the high bar squat. This is a great in-season strength builder and a great off-season muscle builder. So this very closely resembles the low bar squat, which means it has a much quicker strength carryover. So just some general facts. If you're competing, you don't want to be doing general strength. You want to be training the squat as much as possible, how you're going to squat in competition. But you need to have a little bit of variation. You need to pull back a little bit. And if you're, let's say, 8 weeks out, you might be able to benefit from a little bit of squat accessories. This is where high bar squat is so valuable. Because it resembles the squat so much, it's not going to interfere with adaptations very much, and it's going to enhance the adaptations. So this is great close season. And just like every other accessory we've mentioned, it's very quad dominant. And so it's going to be very useful for those that tip forward in the squat. If you don't know, that is a very, very common issue when it comes to squatting. And so most accessories treat that phenomenon. In the off season, it's actually a brilliant muscle builder. So one of the concerns with low bar, this is something I have gone through myself, right? You've just finished comp, right? You're building into an off season. You've got low bar sets of 8. Low bar sets of 8. I was getting out of breath on a set of 2, okay? You hit your set of 8. It's brutal. It hurts. You're laying on the floor going, and you're like, your lower back is like cramping up and you're just like, I know, it looks like, I'm not going to say what it looks like, but it's not very fun. And so high bar squats often use less lower back. And so if you're doing this high work capacity, high rep kind of squatting, for whatever reason that you're doing it, high bar is often a great option. It still builds that muscle, it still builds that work capacity, but often takes away your lower back. And so you're just not going to get jammed up and super sore super quick. And so that's why it's also great in the off season, because it helps us reduce the lower back load. A lot of powerlifters, one of their limiting factors is just that their lower back doesn't handle as much as everyone else. And so they need to design their programs to reduce their lower back volumes. Fuck, I was just thinking about that analogy where I'm like on the ground. Fucking hell. And so because of the strength carryover and because of the work capacity benefits, I think the high bar squat is best programmed in the 3 to 10. Coming in at number 4, this is our first accessory where we're not directly squatting. So this is the leg press. Oh man, I fucking love the leg press. The leg press is an awesome accessory for building muscle. It is amazing, especially done right. I'm going to be honest with you, most people suck at leg press. They will load up 10 plates aside and they'll like quarter rep it and they'll be like, go hard or go home, brother. And they'll just like load it up, ego lift, rack the weight. Bro, they go home, their quads aren't even sore, it's their knees that are sore. It's like that is not leg pressing. A proper leg press for building muscle is through a huge full range of motion. We get a deep stretch on the quads in the hole and we push up with force. That is how you leg press. The leg press is such a powerful quad builder. You don't need much volume if you do it right. And because you can emphasize the quads so much, it is such a good exercise. If you need quad growth, but you can't sacrifice everything else, leg pressing is one of the best options out there. For this reason, I think the leg press is best programmed in the 8 to 15. You can be deep off-season doing 15 rep leg presses. That sounds like hell, and it is. But you could be approaching competition, maybe you're 12, 8 weeks out, your leg presses could be low as 12, 8. It's all dependent, and that's why the leg press is so valuable. Coming in at number 5, this is an unexpected one. The Romanian deadlift. Hang on, Ashton, why are we deadlifting for squats? That doesn't even make sense. It does make sense, and this is why. So this is why the RDL is a good accessory for squats. When we squat, especially low bar, we don't just use the quads. We use the glutes. We use the hamstrings for stability. They don't contribute as a primary contributor, but you still need to have relatively strong hamstrings to help with stability. You also use your lower back. The lower back is a hip extender to some extent. And so these muscle groups are directly trained with the Romanian deadlift. It's a great builder as a hip hinge. It's a variation which is not squatting. Building strong glutes and building a strong lower back and building strong quads is a huge recipe for a big squat. That's why the RDL is so powerful, because it targets that posterior side of your squat. A lot of these accessories focus on the quads, which is great, right? But we can't forget the other side. The Romanian deadlift can also teach us how to hold a solid brace. Again, having good transfer. The bracing transfer is more towards the deadlift, but it's still teaching us some form of bracing. So that's a little bit of a side note and a side positive, which is not as powerful as the others, but it's still worth mentioning. I recommend programming the RDL in the 6 to 10 rep range. I think this is where it benefits the most for strength athletes specifically. If you RDL properly with a deep stretch through your hamstrings and your glutes, you don't need much volume. I have been getting away with doing close to 2 sets a week. I once did 2 sets of RDLs a week. I once did RDLs, 1 session, right? I did 2 sets. I was literally sore for like 5 days. The RDL can be brutal, especially if you do it right. So make sure you are doing it right. That has been my 5 top powerlifting accessories for the squat. But we have some notable mentions. This is things like goblet squats and Bulgarian split squats. These are useful for building muscle and a little bit of stability, especially for rehab. But they are not the most powerful in my opinion. You can sprinkle them in if they become a necessity, so don't exclude them from your training, but you should never sacrifice main powerful accessories for smaller things like goblet squats or Bulgarian split squats. You have to be careful with your choices, especially if you train with intent. And for that reason, accessories which are not as powerful, maybe single leg or very general, can be useful, but not at the sacrifice of your main lifts. And should be programmed sparingly and only really for necessity. They should be justified. If you can't justify programming any accessory for any reason, then don't. Accessories serve 2 purposes: to build muscle or build strength. If you're not doing any of those, then you're kind of wasting your time. Anyways, that has been my top 5 accessories plus bonuses. Let me know in the comments your favorite squat accessory. I would love to hear your opinions on the list we have. Do you think that we should have not included some accessories? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video entertaining, enjoyable, anything like that, then hit the like button and the subscribe button. Or maybe you hated this video. Maybe you think I'm a tool. Maybe you go, Ashton, you know what? All your records are fake. I can just Google an APU, click the inspection tool, and then change it to my name. Your records are fake, okay?